I'm riding every roller coaster at Knott's Berry Farm, like this one that dangles you over a huge beyond vertical drop, one of the world's most intense wooden coasters, and even this one where you literally ride on a horse. This park is literally home to 9 of the most extreme and out of control coasters in the world, and I'm riding all of them to find out, is Knott's Berry Farm actually as good as people say, or is the park completely overhyped? Starting with Accelerator, which goes from 0 to 82 miles an hour in 2.3 seconds.
Oh my god, when are we gonna go?
We rocketed up a massive hill, ejecting me from my seat.
Oh my god! What?
And before I could even begin to process that, we blasted into a huge turn super high off the ground, twisting around, then diving back down, and twisting back up into another turn, twisting around, and swooping back to the ground, hitting the brakes, and finally letting me catch my breath.
Bro, what just happened, dude? It felt like we stinking teleported. That was insane.
And that was just the first coaster. There are still 8 others to ride, which according to you guys are some of the craziest, most intense, and best coasters in the world. See, for the past year, you guys have been spamming my comments telling me I absolutely need to check out this park. So I literally flew halfway across the country for one day just to finally see if this park is actually as good as you guys say it is. Anyways, after I got off of Accelerator, I went deeper into the park and immediately came face to face with HangTime, which is one of the coolest looking coasters I've ever seen, with track going everywhere. It also features a huge 96-degree beyond vertical drop.
But it doesn't just drop ya, it goddamn holds you there.
It starts by climbing up the vertical lift, which is one of the most bizarre feelings on any coaster.
Oh, that's so weird!
But it also kind of stretched out my back, which felt really good. Of course, the coaster only got crazier from here as we inched closer and closer to the drop, which was so steep it looked like the track just ended. Then we stopped.
Oh, what the heck is this? Oh, what the heck? What? Oh, just let us drop.
We just hung there for what felt like an eternity before the brake finally let go and we started creeping towards the drop. Then we plummeted to the ground with so much force I thought I was gonna get thrown from the train. I didn't even have a second to process that though, as we shot up into a massive turn that whipped us sideways, then immediately flipped upside down before diving to the ground. We flew into a half loop that hung me upside down for a second before twisting out and slowly flipping through a corkscrew super high off the ground. We dropped down again, shot back up into a super high off the ground turn, then flattened out, only to suddenly plummet down a crazy drop, throwing me into my lap bar with nearly as much force as that first drop. Before I could even think, we rocketed up into another half loop. We slammed out of the loop, only to immediately dive into yet another one, diving back to the ground before snapping up and into the brakes.
Dude, that was such a weird coaster. Like, half of it was awesome, and the other half was actually awful. Like, the first drop was stinking insane. All the upside down moments were awesome. They were filled with like an ungodly amount of hang time, which is kind of what you'd expect for a coaster that's literally named Hang Time. But everything in between was crazy rough and painful. It was so weird going from like super smooth, awesome moment to super rough and bumpy moment. I did still have a good time on it though, which is probably more than I'm gonna be able to say for this coaster.
Coast Rider, which is the park's wild mouse. And if you've seen anything on this channel before, you know I absolutely despise wild mice. But this one is something special because, as if just being a wild mouse isn't bad enough, this one is apparently one of, if not the worst wild mouse in the world.
Ever since I decided to come to this park, I have been dreading riding this one. I was actually really hopeful that it was just gonna be closed, but it's not, so I might as well get it done now.
It starts with a little turn onto the lift, and I was really not looking forward to what was coming next.
Dude, I'm so nervous. I've never once heard a single good thing about this.
Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, the lift was super quick, yanking us to the top in seconds before dropping us down, a surprisingly solid drop that slightly lifted me out of my seat for a second. We shot up and immediately slammed into some brakes, which killed our speed as we entered into the famous wild mouse turns. Back-to-back, completely unbanked turns that are normally unbelievably painful, but here they were so slow that they did literally nothing.
Well, this is boring now.
Eventually, we made our way out of the tiny turns and started twisting our way down a weird curving drop, dropping down a little, rising back up mid-turn, then suddenly dropping again. We popped back up and hit some brakes, and I thought maybe it was over, but unfortunately it wasn't, as we rolled into a second section of Wild Mouse turns. Only this time, they weren't boring. The first one wasn't that bad, but after a little drop, we smashed into the next turn so hard it slammed me to the side of the train.
Ah, okay, it's getting bad now.
Then we went straight for a second and did it again.
Oh, God.
Thankfully, after that, we hit the brakes, ending the weirdly not that bad ride.
I don't know what people are on about with that. Like, it wasn't fun. It was actually just really boring. And I will take a boring wild mouse over a regular wild mouse literally any day of the week, including Tuesdays.
Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about how the trains on this coaster have some really bad shin guards, and those make it just extremely painful, but I genuinely did not notice anything like that. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe I have some like really weird shins that don't touch them. I don't know, but I didn't notice anything. From there, I went over to what is easily the weirdest coaster in the park, and one of the weirdest coasters I've genuinely ever seen. Pony Express, where you literally ride on a horse, which is completely bizarre, but also stinking awesome. It starts by slowly turning onto a launch track. Then we sat there for a second, which is when it really started to sink in that I was riding on a horse. Out of nowhere, we trotted forwards in a very slow launch that was nothing compared to the insane one on Accelerator. But that really didn't matter, because as I mentioned, I was riding a goddamn horse. We climbed up a small hill, banked into a slow turn, and then fell back down, galloping up into a turn that twisted down next to the path, giving me a quick glance at the people waiting in line before we jumped over a path in the rapids ride. Our horses landed back on the ground, only to swerve to the left and into a shed. We quickly turned around, then popped back out into the open and bounced over a path, entering into an absolutely insane— Oh, that's it? Oh. Well, I'm still on a horse.
That was incredibly underwhelming. It does literally nothing. Like, the launch is boring, and then it just kind of turns around and goes back to the station. The ride is like maybe 20 seconds long, and it's an incredibly boring 20 seconds, apart from the fact that you're doing it while riding on a goddamn horse, which is one of the coolest gimmicks I've ever seen for a coaster, but it's not enough to make this a good coaster. It is still very boring.
After that, I started heading over to the next coaster, which was on the complete opposite side of the park, and the journey to it took me through this super cool ghost town area. The atmosphere in this area, and really the entire park, is genuinely incredible. Like, I came to this park expecting it to be a pretty normal amusement park with some pretty cool coasters, but the theming absolutely blew me away. Every single area was so immaculately well done. Anyways, after leaving the ghost town and walking past the park's entrance, I entered into Planet Snoopy for a coaster that's supposed to be really good, even though nobody ever really talks about it. Sierra Sidewinder.
This is apparently one of the best and most intense spinning coasters in the world. I don't really believe that, though, to be entirely honest, because it's inside of Planet Snoopy, the park's like kiddie area. They wouldn't build a super intense spinning coaster in a kiddie area, right? Maybe they did. Maybe this thing's gonna absolutely blow me away and knock my socks off.
It starts with a shockingly fast lift that was also way steeper than I expected. I barely had any time to look around before we were already at the top, and I was expecting to plummet down a drop, but instead we just slowly twisted to the side and then fell back down a little drop, rising up a bit, dropping back down, then rising again, before suddenly diving down a massive drop. As we fell, we were spinning, which made the drop super disorienting. We shot into a turn that whipped us to the side while climbing up, then we twisted the other way and dove into a long, crushing helix that slammed me into the seat and legit made me start to black out. When I came back to reality, we suddenly snapped sideways in the opposite direction. Then we snapped the other way again, shooting up into another big helix that was a bit weaker than the other one, but still felt out of control. We spiraled through yet another one and popped up into the brakes.
I didn't believe people, but yeah, that is legitimately one of the most intense spinning coasters I've ever ridden. Why is that in the kiddie area?
Literally right next door to that coaster was the park's newest coaster, but unfortunately, unfortunately, I wasn't able to ride it.
From what I've read online, you need a child with you to be able to ride this one. As some people say, it has changed and now anybody can ride it, but the line is 45 minutes and I don't want to wait 45 minutes just to be told that I can't ride it because I don't have a kid with me.
But it's fine, because right across from that is a different kiddie coaster that I actually could ride, Jaguar, which looked really interesting.
Because it looks like if a monorail decided it wanted to become a roller coaster while still also giving scenic tours around the park. Like, this thing goes super far that way, then comes all the way back and goes around this area. It looks so cool.
It starts by going down a curving drop that somehow picks up more speed than I expected before soaring through a helix above the path. We twisted up, then went through this super cool temple, which is also where the station is. And right after that, the coaster starts to get absolutely insane with genuinely the most surprising and crazy moment on any family coaster in the world. We literally just went straight for 6 seconds. God dang, it's still going straight. What the heck? Finally, we jetted up and went through the center of a loop, which looks sick, but I barely had time to appreciate it before we started diving down, twisting one way, snapping the other way, then twisting the other way again, twisting around and making our way over to a second lift. We slowly climbed up, turned a little at the top, then dropped down what has to be one of the shallowest and most unexciting drops I've ever ridden, gradually building up a bit of speed before climbing back up and popping over a little tiny hill. We dropped to the side a bit, then jankily twisted the other way, turning around and diving to the ground, only to twist the other way and then literally just go straight again. We rose up, then entered into a huge helix, which was completely bizarre. We curved down, then suddenly rose back up, still turning, and then jankily dropped down into even more helix, pinning me to the side of the train as we wound our way into the brakes.
That was actually really fun. Like, that wasn't the tallest, the fastest, the longest, the craziest, anything like that, but that was just pure fun. That was great.
Halfway through that coaster, we went through the center of a loop, and you might be wondering, what coaster has that loop? And the answer is complicated. See, that loop used to belong to a coaster named Montezooma's Revenge, which was a classic and had been at the park for ages. Eventually though, because how old it was, it became too hard to maintain, and so something had to be done. But because it was a classic, the park didn't want to just tear it out, so they decided to completely refurbish the ride, giving it new trains, new theming, and new launches, and the concepts they put out for it looked awesome. Unfortunately, something went wrong. Nobody really knows what it was, but it was originally supposed to open in 2023, but then it didn't. Then it was supposed to open in 2024, and then it didn't. And it looked like something had just gone so catastrophically wrong that the coaster would never open again. But just like 4 days before I went to the park, they put the loop back in, and it's actually looking like it might finally open up sometime soon. When this video was released, I'm currently on a trip to Europe, so this video was recorded about a month ago, and with my luck, in that time, they've probably made some huge progress on the coaster. I'm sure someone in the comments will tell y'all if something interesting happened. By the way, if you're interested in that Europe trip, videos will be coming out on this channel at some point, but right now on my Instagram, I should be posting my first reactions to some of the biggest coasters and stuff, so go give that a follow if you want to check it out. Anyways, after I got off Jaguar, I was right across from a coaster that I'd been looking forward to all day, Silver Bullet, which is the first thing I saw when I entered the park, and looks absolutely insane. By the way, this isn't a normal coaster, it's an inverted coaster, which basically is just a coaster where you ride underneath the track with your feet dangling beneath you, which somehow makes everything feel like 50 times more intense.
I feel like this has the potential to be the most intense coaster in the park. Like, Accelerator was absolutely insane. This looks like it might be even more intense.
It starts by climbing up a huge lift, slowly taking me higher and higher. When we finally reached the top, I braced myself for an absolutely insane drop, but instead, we just dipped down a little, went straight for a second, then twisted gently to the side. And now I was expecting for an absolutely insane drop. Nope! The drop on this coaster is literally just a ramp. I legitimately think this is lamer than the drop on Jaguar. Like, at least on that, it's a kiddie coaster, so lame drops are kinda expected. This is not a kiddie coaster, and first drops on these big coasters are normally one of, if not the best parts of the entire ride. So this was just unbelievably disappointing. disappointing. We built up some good speed on the slightly downwards angled straight track, and before I knew it, we blasted into a massive, brutal loop. I was slammed into my seat as we flipped upside down with so much force that it felt like it was trying to rip my legs off. We dove out of the loop and shot up into this huge, super tall, steeply banked turn, which somehow made me feel a little weightless for a second, giving me just a moment to catch my breath before we dove down and flew into a huge cobra roll. I was pulled into my seat as we twisted up, then rolled sideways, floating smoothly around a peaceful turn, then suddenly whipping down as we dropped out of the roll and fell to the ground. I didn't even have a second to recover as we ascended up, then snapped through a super floaty roll that held me in the air completely weightless as we dove into a super forceful helix, spinning around super high above the paths. Out of nowhere, we whipped through a corkscrew that violently flung me sideways and slammed me down. We bounced over a little turning hill, then, while I was still recovering from that corkscrew, suddenly spun through another one before smoothly entering into a completely brutal helix that pulled so much blood to my legs that I genuinely started to black out. My legs were tingling violently as the world went blurry. We twisted around and around before finally untwisting and, right as my vision returned, floating up and hitting the brakes.
That was stinking insane. That ending? Oh my god, the back-to-back-to-back out of nowhere corkscrews right into like that absolutely insane helix. I'm struggling to put together words as to how intense that was.
From there, it was finally time to ride the most hyped up coaster in the park, Ghost Rider, which is apparently one of, if not the, best wooden coasters in the world. Though I was pretty skeptical about it.
I'm not gonna lie, looking at it, it doesn't look like anything too special. Like the area it's in is really cool, but the coaster itself, I feel like I've seen at least 50 wooden coasters that look exactly like this before.
It starts with a little drop out of the station, twisting to the side, before starting to climb the surprisingly long lift. And before I knew it, we were at the top.
Oh boy!
It starts with a crazy drop, diving down to the ground and picking up an insane amount of speed before smashing to the left in a crazy intense turn. Before I could even process that though, we were already soaring up and into a massive hill that threw me into the air and held me there for ages while we dove to the ground. We shot up and plowed into a huge turn that pinned me to the side of the train as we twisted around. Then we dove back down, flying through the support structure and blasting into a nearly unbanked turn that we plowed through with an insane amount of speed and held me to the side of my seat as we dropped down into the supports. We ascended up, then turned around super far above the ground, giving me a second to catch my breath.
Oh my god, this is so much crazier than I thought it was gonna be.
I didn't get much time though, because after just a little bit of straight track, we dove down again.
Oh, it keeps going!
Entering into a second half that genuinely feels like it was running 20 miles an hour too fast. We popped over a little hill, then got thrown to the side and suddenly into the air as we dove down another drop. We shot up over a hill that had me in the air for a second before suddenly flattening out into a nearly unbanked turn, throwing me one way only to rise into another nearly unbanked turn, pinning me the other way as we spiraled down, then rose back up. Out of nowhere, we dropped down a little drop, then flew over a crazy hill that had me levitating in the air before diving down and soaring into what looked just like another hill, but suddenly flattened out and sent us into the most out of control moment I've ever experienced on any wooden coaster as we snapped into an extremely fast, extremely long, completely unbanked helix. I was shoved into the side of the seat and held there for ages as the coaster twisted around, dropped down, rose back up, and just kept turning. It was insane and easily the best moment on the ride. When we found our way out of the helix, we popped over a little hill, lightly tossing me into the air, and hit the brakes, finally letting me process what the heck just happened.
Oh my god, I should have never doubted that. I should have never doubted that. That's the best wooden coaster I've ever ridden, and it's not even stinking close. I didn't know that wooden coasters could be that aggressive. I didn't know wooden coasters could be that intense. That is one of the best and most out of control coasters I've ever ridden.
So overall, would I say that Knott's Berry Farm is as good as you guys say it is? Yeah. While it may not have as many insane coasters as other parks have, the ones it does have are just on another level. Accelerator has the best launch I've ever experienced. Silver Bullet was just pure intensity, except for that first drop, and Ghost Rider is just earth-shatteringly good. Also, I got to ride a coaster on a goddamn horse. How stinking cool is that? Now, if you enjoyed this video, I can almost guarantee you'll enjoy this one, where I take on the world's most intense roller coaster. Also, make sure to check out the Instagram.